Hi, everybody. Welcome into another edition. This is Cross Functionality, the show where coaching intersects baseball and softball, male and female, hosted by former college baseball and softball players. Thank you for joining us today and listening on the audio side, however that may be. And of course, watching on the YouTube side, Softball Strength Academy YouTube page. Our topic today, episode 11, Navigating Your Life Post-Athletic Career. There's a lot on this tree and a lot of branches we'll get to today talking about this topic. Let me bring in my friend and co-host, softball national champion at the University of Alabama, current day renowned coach Cassie Reilly-Boccia. What's up, sister?
Hey, Jim. Thanks for having me again. Excited for today.
I like your sweatshirt.
Thank
For
you.
the record, we're recording this on a Saturday.
Yes.
Happy Saturday to you. Happy Wednesday to the listening and watching audience. And you're wearing an Alabama sweatshirt today because you are, I think, representing your alma mater as they play whomever they play. I don't know who they play today. I was watching the Maryland-Michigan game. Michigan was pretty good this year.
Yes. You know what? It's I try to wear Alabama stuff on Saturdays, especially in football season. But this is like an off-brand from the university. And it showed up on my Instagram. It was usually don't see like off-brand softball stuff. So I got this last year for the 2022 season. And yeah, it's a good one.
And your Instagram, of course, at Cassie _. At Coach _ Cassie RB on Instagram.
I can't get it straight, so that's totally fine.
I was so confident too. I was like, here we go. I went right in barreling for it. I said, good start to the show. Okay, today our main topic: navigating your life post-athletic career. I saw a great story. I want to bring this up. Earlier in the week, this is one of the key points to navigating your life post-athletic career, because I've always said there is the athlete's age, and then there's the regular life age. People always say you've got your whole life ahead of you, and it doesn't start until you're 35. Well, when you're 35 as an athlete, your athletic life is starting to come to an end. So my point here, a gentleman named, I don't know if you saw this story, Carl, I hope I'm saying his last name right, Alumby, maybe I'm pronouncing the syllables wrong, a former East Cleveland car mechanic who made national news, graduating from medical school, ready for this, at the age of 47, and he'll complete his medical residency at Cleveland Clinic, Akron General Hospital this weekend. So I guess right now, this weekend, because this story came out earlier in the week. So it just goes to show you really that not only when people say, well, it's never too late to pursue your dreams. Yes, of course, I understand all of that. But sometimes with athletes, we get into this mindset of when we reach the age of 30, thinking about this post-athletic life, we think we're very, very old, when in reality, we're still very, very young. And there's still a lot of opportunities opened up for not just athletes, but regular adults in general.
Absolutely. And, it's interesting. You said 30, 35 and athletic career is over it is a very small, I think, percent of males that get to play post-college. But then there's an even smaller percentage of females that have that opportunity to continue to call themselves an athlete that's competing professionally post-college. And so it is interesting because you're right. 30 is young, and so is 22. And so many people, so many athletes end their career at 22. And I had family members, like people close to me, say that, hey, well, you've been to the moon. Everything else is kind of downhill from here. Talking about the rest of your life. Yeah. Grant, that was probably projecting, him probably projecting his life on other people. But it is crazy to think that, a lot of people graduate thinking like, okay, well, I just experienced the best days of my life, and now I'll figure out the rest maybe,
Yeah, and I think that if you are a collegiate athlete, you do experience, especially at a big school like you were, I think you experience a lot of things that most people don't get to experience. You get some perks that most people don't really get. But that idea of, well, my it's all downhill from here when you turn 21, 22, it's a complete and utter fallacy. I mean, your life's not even getting started yet at that point, because in your 20s, you're kind of still navigating things, especially in your post-athletic career or post-athletic life, as it were.
Yeah. And it's crazy too, because people say, from an outside perspective, I think when teenagers look at people in their 20s and they're like, oh, they're so cool. They're living on their own. They're doing these cool things. And, people who are older look at people in their 20s and are like, oh, to be 20 again. And yet I remember being 25 and looking around and all my friends were experiencing anxiety. All my friends were like, I don't know if I picked the right career. I don't know if I'm in the right place. of course, like once you're done as an athlete, you have to deal with your whole identity shifting. But in addition, you have to deal with, well, I don't have school laid out for me anymore. It's not like I know I'm going to go to this grade and then this grade, and then, I'll go to college and finish this grade and this grade and this grade. It's, well, what do you want to do now? You go and pick, and I think there's a lot of anxiety surrounding that as well. In addition to, well, now who am I without my sport?
Right. It's funny because I was going to ask later, but I'll ask now. Did you ever experience that anxiety when you were going off and the national championship was done and all the celebrations were over and you knew that you were heading out to Iowa for postgraduate work? Did you ever have that type of anxiety, or was there any sort of doubt that started to kind of kick in with you when you were thinking about all of these things?
It's funny. I played my whole 4 years, and I felt like I dreaded the moment I wasn't going to be an athlete anymore. I wasn't going to have my team, or really that softball was going to be removed from my life as me being a player. And I felt like I dreaded it so much. And I had this false idea in my head that if we won the national championship, I would somehow evade that feeling. Like it was like that would have been like my body armor, like, nope, I don't feel bad about anything because I won the national championship.
Yeah.
So if anything, I'd probably just kick the can down the road, because I remember being in the middle of Iowa and being like, what am I doing? Like, why am I here? Why didn't I choose something else? Like, should I have picked something else? Should I have picked a different grad degree? Like, all of a sudden you have a day where you're questioning, should I be here? And then 100% that'll happen. That happens throughout, I think, anybody's career. It's not just in your 20s where, certain things start to happen and you wonder, have I outgrown my position? Did I pick the right position? Well, I'm going to start comparing myself. X, Y, and Z people are earning more money than me, and they seem so much happier in their job. They seem like they love their job. All those things come into play. I think it's very difficult to be completely immune from those at all times. I feel like they definitely creep in every now and then. And certainly I experience those just a couple times throughout my life. And I probably will continue to experience little things like that here and there, but I feel like it's way more concentrated right when you get done playing, get done with college. And,
I heard somebody say that, you see a lot of times now on social media, people maybe posting about their jobs and their happiness. I did that in air quotes. But I heard from somebody once that pictures taken on social media, they're just a moment in time, that it doesn't really show you the whole picture at all. And it doesn't explain that person's feelings pre and post that social media posting. And I think that a lot of times that gives you, that puts you down the wrong road mentally and puts you in the wrong place in your thinking, in that everybody else is happy all of the time. And here I am, post athletic career, and I have no idea what I'm doing with my life.
Yeah. They say comparison is the thief of joy, right? And
yeah,
that what allows us to compare better than social media, and so that's certainly and maybe I'm being like hyper aware of how my peers were feeling, because Instagram and Snapchat and everything, TikTok became or still is becoming prevalent, but especially like right when I graduated was basically Instagram's taking off. And I feel like that was the first time people could really be like, oh, wait a second, so-and-so played at Florida and is now doing X, Y, and Z internship. Like, where did we miss that? Like something as silly as that all of a sudden that thought crosses your mind, and it doesn't feel good. It's not a good feeling to question what you're doing and where you're at. So yeah, I think that's challenging, and that's a great point. It is a moment in time. And I think a lot of people feel pressure to try to showcase like, oh, I'm happy, I'm doing well, look how great things are, Yeah,
that's a good word for it, showcase. I got to tell you, and maybe it's just me, I don't mind people who post content. You do it, I do it on social media, or even posts their job listings or their job titles in their social media biographies. What I do mind, though, is people who continually have to find a need, they have this unquenchable thirst to post what current position or what new position they've obtained, and they do it in a way where they call it a humble brag, when in reality it doesn't tell the whole story. And I don't know, I'm getting off topic here of what our main topic is today, but I'm just not for really doing that. I think LinkedIn is for that, and everything else, I think that you should just either put it in your header, whatever that may be, Twitter, Instagram, and just go about your life and just do what what you're going to do, unless you're going to really we have to post content out there as we do every week. I don't know.
Right. Well, it's not too far off topic. I mean, look at what athletes are really conditioned or feel like they have to do right now, where it's like, I'm humbled and blessed to announce I have received a scholarship offer.
Right. It's very pretentious.
It does feel weird. And it's funny too, because like, I had an athlete, she got a big packet from some big time D1 school. And she was so proud of it. She called me and she was like, my travel ball coach really says I have to post that on social media, like that I got that, because then other schools will know. And she felt so uncomfortable with it, but she felt so cornered into, well, this is just how things are. And this is just how you have to do things in order to get recruited. But yeah, it is interesting. It's like this very, I don't know if it's like this like quick sense of dopamine, like, oh, I feel good about myself in the short term, but
right.
I feel like if you were having a face-to-face conversation with someone and you got to be like, yeah, I'm getting recruited by all these schools, or I got this job promotion, and then you see the reaction of the person on the other side that is like, oh, good for you. Like maybe that would be better feedback to say, maybe I shouldn't word it that way. Like they don't get any feedback on when those postings happen. So,
well, and I bring this up because I mentioned to you about the Phillies having the hitting coordinator job open in their player development system. And the person, I won't name who it is, but the person who occupied that position and has now since left that position, I don't know what happened. I'm going to assume that he resigned, give the benefit of the doubt. He posted a big long message on social media as to why he left the position and this and that. And it's like, I don't know, it gets to a point where you say to yourself, and this is again the fallacy of social media, it's like, at least this is just me. I say, I'm like, who cares? You're done. You left. Okay. You moved on to the next thing. That's what LinkedIn is for. That's, I don't know. To me, it never used to be like this. And now social media has magnified people giving them the opportunity to name the next position that they've obtained or to gives them the platform to tell people, hey, I'm moving on to this next job, or I've moved on from this job. I don't know. It just seems very, again, pretentious to me.
It does seem strange. Yeah. And maybe that's us not growing up with it. And you ask someone who's 15 years younger than us or 10 years younger, and they'll say, well, no, that's normal. That's what happens. That's what they're used to. So I don't know, but I do think it definitely affects an athlete post-career, because that whole cycle of, well, I've always been a part of a team. I've always been an athlete. Now what? Well, now they have however many people they want to follow to be able to compare to their now what's, and really it's comparing and questioning what they're currently doing. And we wonder why like depression is so much higher and how much harder it is sometimes for people to move on. That's a spiral you can't get out of until you break it and say, okay, no more of this. This actually doesn't matter. Let's redefine who I am now, or let's find out exactly who I am without my sport now.
It's like we're like the older generation now, bagging on the younger generation. We've reached that age. We're starting to do that.
Back in my day,
we didn't have social media. Well, we did, but we had MySpace. We had our top 5 friends on MySpace.
It was different. It was certainly different, and it wasn't in your pocket.
That's right. That's another thing. That instant gratification. You can instantly. I have my phone right here, sitting below me. I can instantly just go right on Instagram and see what's going on, and see who's getting new jobs everywhere, and who's becoming a new CEO of their company. They're really, even though they're really not. We're becoming the generation. We're becoming that part of the generation where we scream at the clouds. That story.
We got the best years of screaming at the clouds ahead of us.
We do. We very much so. That story though really hit me, because again, you and I both look at it and I'll admit it. I don't care, but we both look at our age as older than what we really are, because we were conditioned and we hear it and we follow these things. We follow sports, obviously, and we work in sport. We are so conditioned in our minds to think that, hey, it's out there, you're on the wrong side of 30, when in the real world that really doesn't matter. You're on the wrong side of 30, people will look at you crazy, and they do when you say that. But athletes always have that insecurity about their age, because it's always drilled into their head that you have a very short window from this age to this age where you're in your prime, and really you're not even close to being in the real prime of your life yet.
Yeah, it's so great you said that. We still do have some pro athletes that come through our building to train, and it was one of their birthdays. They had turned 24. I was like, hey, happy birthday, man. And he was almost like, he looked so like sullen and drawn, and he was like, I can't believe I'm 24 and I haven't made it to this level yet. He's like, I have maybe one more year left to try to do this. Like in his head, he had like missed this massive opportunity. And again, that all lends to like, we train ourselves so well as an athlete in a game, in a pressure situation, to be present. Win this pitch, good, move on to the next one. And that's the only way we handle all these pressures right on the field, is by being present. And then yet we go out and like look at every other situation like, oh, I should have done this. What if this doesn't happen? Oh my goodness. Like we allow all these pressures to cave in on us then, instead of probably utilizing some of those tactics into, other parts of our life.
Yeah, I agree. So anyway, I encourage everybody to go out and I remember when I was a kid and the Phillies brought up Chase Utley and made him the full-time second baseman when he was 26 years old. And you would think, when looking at it from the lens of athletics, that's 26 years old, first round draft pick, his window, it gets a little bit smaller for how long he's going to be in the major leagues. And he had a very, very nice career, obviously. But I wonder if he would have come up at 24, how much more his athletic career would have been, his baseball career would have been extended. But looking at it from the real world perspective, 26, we're still kids at that point. I mean, people say when you're in your 20s, you're still a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, no, I don't disagree. And you know what, maybe that is something that's it's scientifically looking at a male versus a female too. A female's body, as I think the female's body starts around like 21, starting to like hormone shifts change a little bit more. Mm-hmm. So the ability for the body to recover, it starts to, or like even produce power, like your body's essentially prepping you for like baby time, right? And it's
sure.
Your hormone shifts so massively that it makes it even more difficult sometimes for a female to play a little bit longer or have that much demand on their body. So, and again, I've mentioned there's not a professional outlet really for softball. There's some potential opportunities here and there, but it is very well known that like you have until the age of 22. When you're in high school, you enter high school, it's like, all right, you have 8 years left to do this thing.
Yeah.
Maybe, Mm-hmm. That's crazy. That's crazy to think like it's usually very finite. For at least for females there.
I do wonder if athletes, if they were told that at that young age, when they enter high school, hey, look, here's the deal. You have 8 years at least, possibly. If you work hard and you have enough talent, you have 8 years left to play, male and female. Then after that, you're finished. Wonder if that shift to that mindset. And I'm not for when coaches say you're not going to be a professional athlete or none of you are going to be professional athletes. I think that's bullshit. I think you saying that to your students as a coach is projecting. I think it's the wrong thing to say. But I think there needs to be, if you're going to say to somebody or encourage them to reach their athletic peak, and if they want to play professionally, I think there needs to be that disclaimer in there where but this is how many years you do have left guaranteed if you work hard and you have the talent. You have those 8 years from the time you're 14 to when you reach the end of college at 22, whether you go D1, D2, or D3.
Right. Yeah. And maybe that changes perspective. I knew the end of Alabama was going to be the end of my career. And that was freeing in a lot of ways too. I didn't have this like bone on the end of a string, like dragging me along. And I don't know, it allows you to pour everything you have, almost more so, right? Like, it's like, okay, my body doesn't feel like great. No big deal. I only have 2 years left to do this. I'm feeling a little stressed. No big deal. I only have 1 year left to do this. I only have 3 months left to do this. I knew. And in a ways, I don't think that's a burden. I think that was like a very big blessing that we knew this was coming to an end and this was going to be the highest level that we could play. Because even if we did play pro, it probably wouldn't come close to mattering as much as what was going on in college.
Right. And financially, it wouldn't have been.
Yeah.
Right.
Even like financially, like even purposeful wise, like you have someone who's like, yeah, we won the pro championship, which is, I'm not taking anything away from that, but that's a 4-team tournament that gets played like over the course of a couple months where everybody comes and watches the World Series. And, that's become a much bigger deal. So besides the Olympics, which at the time softball wasn't in the Olympics when we played it, I don't know what else you could win that would be bigger than the World Series,
Yeah. And again, it sets a date for when things are ending. So then you can really set up your post life. And again, somebody like, say, we bring this guy up all the time, Tom Brady, he is pretty much set that, hey, this is his last season. He gives him the opportunity mentally. And also in the physical world, to set up what he's going to do post-career. And that's where I think athletes get in trouble in the beginning in their post-athletic life. We'll get to that in just a second. I do want to promote our social media. I'm at Jim Tara. Cassie is at Coach_CassieRB on Instagram, at Coach Cassie RB on Twitter. Email us to jimbopodcast21@gmail.com. Episode 11, Navigating Your Life Post-Athletic Career. But I think that's a huge part of it too, knowing when that, we've said this before on the program, knowing when that end date comes and knowing that, hey, okay, this is when it's happening. Now I can set things up for myself, even if it's something small like your physical fitness or staying in shape, your workout programs of how to stay in shape, things like that. Every little thing can now fall into place for you in a crazy, hectic world when you're post-athletic career and you're at that phase.
Yeah. You know what? It's funny because I definitely viewed it as like this, it was this big bad thing that was happening. The end of my softball career, I always viewed it as a negative, but in the same breath, there's a lot of positives. And funny enough, my parents, they gave me a jar when I graduated, and it was tiny little pieces of paper of 101 things to look forward to in life after softball. And they had been working on it for almost a year to just every time they thought of something like, oh, you can go skiing again, not worried about getting hurt. And, you know, you don't have to miss family engagements, communions and graduations and birthday parties and whatever else because you have softball. Like there are really cool aspects of your life after your sport. It just becomes very difficult to realize that all at once because it does take some time.
How did you navigate your friendships, relationships? How did you navigate all of that post-athletic career? Because, you know, when you're in college and you're playing a sport, you're very much shut off from a lot of things that are going on the outside with frat parties, sorority parties, the rush week, all of that kind of stuff. And you have your teammates, certainly. But once this all comes to an end, how did you navigate your friendships and building relationships with people?
That's so funny you said that. It didn't hit me until I was sitting in my first class at Northern Iowa that I didn't really make any friends. I had a lot of acquaintances, I would say, at Alabama, but my true friends were my teammates.
Sure.
And then I think back to high school, and again, I had acquaintances, but my true friends were my teammates. And so now I'm sitting there and I'm like, when have I ever learned how to make a friend? Like, it was just like this shocking realization that like, I didn't know how to make friends.
You question your social skills.
What do people talk about besides softball? Like, you know, it's just sitting in class.
I'm the same way with baseball. And sometimes even to this day, sometimes I even do that. What do people talk about if it's not baseball? Oh, I don't know. The NFL, gym, college football.
It's very funny. Well, even in my profession, I still am around sports so much. And you know, I'll go to a wedding and I'll be sitting at a table with people and I'll look and I'll be like, what do you talk about? Like, what's this? What's this coming up? So it is interesting. It was very, I think that, again, that took time. And that was a little bit of a lonely feeling to realize, well, my best friends, the people I spent, basically people I call my family. And 10 years later, I still have almost every teammate coming to my wedding in a couple months. We still see each other at least once or twice a year. It's still such an important friendship, but we live thousands of miles apart. You know, it's not like someone you're going to go have dinner with on a Tuesday night. So that was different to navigate. That was certainly something to learn how to do.
Yeah. I remember my first job in professional baseball. The first friend I made was the groundskeeper. And the reason that I made that we clicked and we hit it off so easily was because he played college baseball like myself. So it's almost like, and I told my mom this, and she's like, you know, you baseball people, you seem to just find each other, right? Baseball, softball people, you guys just seem to find each other. So it never really, that bond of playing those two sports never really goes away. You always just seem to find each other and seem to have, if not the most in common, the most things you can always talk about. Because there's always that nucleus subject you can talk about, which is baseball or softball.
My business partner, baseball. Yeah, it is funny. It's true. And you know, and maybe any sport kind of falls into that category, but in particular, like maybe I'm just biased, but like it seems like anybody who plays baseball can talk about baseball all day long. And anyone who plays softball, like that.
I know.
Yeah.
I could talk about it all day long, from the time I wake up to, it's, you know, there's that old saying out there where they said, you know, you spend so long trying. What's that? No, I don't know the saying. There's that saying out there, and I don't even know the saying. You spend so much of your life gripping a baseball. Okay, this is what it is. But the baseball is gripping you.
Ah,
That's the saying.
very nice.
Yeah, yeah. But I've interacted with professional wrestlers before. Long story. I'm sure I'll tell that some other time. But every time that I've interacted or have been around professional wrestlers, they seem to just kind of gravitate towards each other, and they're telling stories back and forth to one another, and they're just kind of communicating to one another, and they have a way of doing it. It's hard to explain, but it's the same thing I think with baseball players, softball players, any athlete, that when you're around somebody who you can relate to, whether it be as a player or whatever, somebody who worked in the game, baseball and softball, there's a certain communication that you have with that person that you don't have with people on the outside world, like say a nurse or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and it's not that you can't find stuff to relate on. Obviously, it's but it's almost like I remember feeling sad one time sitting in that classroom in Iowa, trying to bring something up and just realizing these might not be my people, and that it's okay. But like you go so long with just being surrounded by that comfort zone of being a part of a team. And I do think every year you get done with your sport, you probably mourn something different each year. And I do feel like that first year I was just mourning not having a team. And in actuality, you always have a team in either your family or you might have pockets, but it's probably also why, like, look at how many former athletes go and join CrossFit and love that tribe and love that camaraderie. Like we're trying to seek that comfort zone of people that we can relate to, and it's to be 22 and realize this is the first time probably since I was 8 that I didn't have it. That's a good part of your life where it's not there,
Yeah, that's a great comparison too. A lot of athletes, they join CrossFit gyms or they go to the gym, they go work out because they still need that competition. Let me ask you, when you were in Iowa, who did you rely on socially? Who did you rely? Who was on your team, as it were, that you could reach out to when you were feeling these moments of loneliness?
So you're gonna laugh probably, but I had 2 professors with families. They had young kids that were playing softball, and I had missed my my family back home. So
See, softballs, baseball, they always seem to interject themselves.
So these professors like opened their home to me. They were like having me over for dinner if they ever had like something as simple as pumpkin carving, whatever it was. But in actuality, I had missed my cousins, I missed my family, and this was a perfect segue. And then Coach Murphy at Alabama, his mom lived in the area and went to church every Sunday. So I had my 80-something-year-old best friend at church. But again, I was, she loves the game of softball. She loves obviously her son, and we would chat about that a lot too. So it was very different than 18 to 22-year-old girls that I was used to hanging out with. But it was, they were just little pockets of my family. And then everyone in that grad program that went to UNI during that time period is uber successful right now and is in a really good pocket in their career and their life. And so probably didn't realize it at the time, but just how cool it was to just see those guys in class and work with them on projects was very neat.
So how did you, of course, with the scheduling, that when you were still playing, you had the summer where you get ready for the fall, and then you have fall ball and you have these lifts. There's a lot of things that really get sprung out of whack when you are done your athletic career. How did you align everything from your fitness standpoint to just your overall scheduling, because you didn't have these softball obligations anymore? You weren't going into a clubhouse anymore. You weren't going to fall practices. You weren't going to winter or morning workouts. So how did you get everything in line to where it needed to be personally in your life in general?
For sure. I think people learn a lot about themselves. In those couple years after, I was so busy as an athlete, and I thought, okay, finally I'll be able to not be as busy now, not fill my schedule from the time I wake up to the time I go to bed. And I tried that for a little bit, and then I realized how much I craved that. And anytime in my life I think like, oh, I've gotten too busy and I'll take things away, I'm like, nope, I want it back. I want some semblance back. But I realized how much I liked waking up early and working out, even though I used to be like, oh, I can't wait to not do this anymore. When I was a player, I would still wake up, I'd still work out. I coached a ton to pay for grad school. I didn't think I wanted to be a coach, but I was coaching at night till like 9:00 at night to pay for my grad degree. And that's kind of when I started to realize, shoot, I'm enjoying this more than I'm enjoying what I'm actually doing in my degree. And then I think Wednesdays were my day that I was open. And that's when I started either going and talking to teams, or I was like, yeah, maybe I'll just try to write a book. And so talk about slamming my schedule. Like I was either writing my thesis, writing my book, going to class. I was working as a graduate assistant because that's what was paying for half my grad degree. And then I was working after school to pay for, giving lessons. So I think whether you call that like a coping mechanism, like, oh, I don't want to actually deal with these bad feelings of missing my sport, so I'm going to fill my day so I'm too busy, or if that's just, something I do crave in general, it's probably some semblance of a combination of both. But yeah, it was trying to learn. It was trying to learn, like, do I like working out in the morning, at night, at home, just trying to figure it out.
Did you ever go through that abyss, that unknown of, okay, what's next year? Because there is no more softball and I don't know what I'm doing with my life. Did you ever go through that?
Yes and no.
And how did you cope with it?
Yeah, so I definitely went through it, but I didn't go through it and have a panic about it either. I think some people go through it and it really hits them. It was right when I started to realize, shoot, I'm really enjoying coaching. I'm not over, I don't think I want to go on to my PhD. I don't think I want to go work in a lab the rest of my life like I thought. I want to coach. And then so there, I left for grad school. I had one more semester. I was going home for the summer. And I was like, I don't, that whole June and July, I really didn't know. I was like really sitting there trying to think. I think probably the reason I didn't have that stress is because I had parents who were like, don't go jump into something that you hate. Like, you have time to like do an internship. You can live at home if you need to. And I know that's a big debate. Some parents say like, well, no, you got to get kicked out back against the wall and then figure it out. And then, I think you have other parents who are like my situation that just said, let's afford you time to start something if you want to start it. That summer I met my now business partner. So it was very funny how right when I was at this crossroads, I ended up meeting this guy who's like, hey, I really want to do a facility. We can own it. We can coach in it. Let's see where this goes. So it's obviously worked out. So it was really only about 2 months of not knowing.
And how did you guys meet? That's interesting. How the stars align there.
It is interesting. I was giving a hitting lesson in my backyard, and this guy brought his daughter, and he's like, I know someone who has the same degree as you. He did that whole kinesiology thing. He goes, you guys should meet and just chat about research. And I was like, okay. So I had, I was meeting someone at a Starbucks to talk about kinesiology, I guess, and I knew nothing about him. And he walked in, he sat down, he got his notebook out. He's like, all right, awesome. He's like, so let me know, why do you think you'd be a good fit for this job? And I was like, what job? I was like, what are you talking about?
An interview all of a sudden. Yeah.
So it was this like ambushed job interview that turned into more of a business partner conversation that obviously has led to what our companies are right now.
Okay. All right. So it is amazing though how the stars align there.
Yes.
Like that,
Definitely. I'm super grateful for that.
Did you ever have that moment where you went back and said, man, I really wish I would have focused on studying this more because now I'm finding out that this is my passion and not so much kinesiology?
A little bit. I mean, Northern Iowa is known for strength and conditioning, and they had such a phenomenal strength and conditioning department, but I had it so stuck in my head I didn't want to coach that I really stayed way more in the lab and didn't interact with athletes while I was there. And so when I got to this facility, it was almost like I was trying to do a crash course. I had like 6 months to try to teach myself everything about strength and conditioning, to try to be a certified strength and conditioning professional and get all those certifications in order to coach. And I was sitting there and I was like, son of a gun. I was sitting in Iowa for 2 years. I could have been doing this, but yes and no. Like you say that, but in the same breath, like all the other things I did learn obviously helped me in other ways too. I wouldn't go back and erase it.
The world we live in today, I think it gives you an opportunity. And I think that athletes post their career have a lot more opportunities than say the athletes who were finished in the 90s, early 2000s. And I say that because you can combine certain passions with your actual profession. You have combined kinesiology with softball and teaching hitting through the way the body moves and through muscular patterns, body patterns, movement patterns. I think that is a good lesson in there for a lot of athletes trying to navigate that post-career, that you don't have to be fixated on one particular thing. You can combine a couple of things because there's a lot of outlets, a lot of new technology out there. You can be creative and you can do something that nourishes that passion, but also it gives you the opportunity to make money and to make a living as well.
Absolutely. And I think too, you start to have to redefine what you think of as success or successful, because as an athlete, success might be winning a championship, success might be getting drafted, success might be a certain miles per hour that you're throwing, whatever that may be. You get done, and then you have to figure out, okay, what is success to you? And my business partner and I say this all the time. We didn't get into coaching to make all this money, and we certainly wanted to be able to make a living and do what we love. Someone else's definition of success is very different, especially living right outside of New York City. Like, there are ample opportunities for maybe a lower quality of life in the beginning of your career to lead to a higher quality of life later on. Like, it's not the same path for everybody. And I think that's also something athletes have to keep in mind, is what one person does is going to be completely different than someone else. And you're going to get to a good place. It doesn't have to be the same. And I think that, again, lends to that thief of joy. Like, when you start comparing, like, well, yeah, that's their path, this is your path. You're not in a bad place. You just might be in a different place than you thought you were. And that doesn't mean you're not right where you're supposed to be.
And that's, yeah. And that's, again, there's that's just a myth that is kind of, I guess, was fabricated by our society, where right away, at 23, 24, 25, you have to have things figured out. And it's just simply not the case. That's why, for me, and you've mentioned before that you're getting married very soon. I think that for me, getting married at a later age, if you're late 20s, early 30s, is probably the proper way to go in today's world, because, like I mentioned before and alluded to, with so much technology out there's so many things you can do. I never imagined 3 years ago I'd be doing one podcast, let alone two. I always looked, in fact, I've said once, I said, I'm never going to do a podcast. I just don't see the point of it. And here I am doing two podcasts. So that's why, to me personally, that I think that athletes post their career, they have to, between ages 22 to 25, have to realize that you're still very young and there's still time to figure things out and still have a little bit of fun and to expand your network and to understand that there's a lot of other things out there that you can do now that you didn't get a chance to do when you were so dedicated to your sport.
So true. Coach Murphy used to say all the time, you could have a grain of rice, but if you're thankful for that grain of rice, you're going to be happy. And you could have everything you've ever wanted, but still be looking at everyone else and thinking, well, I should have done this path and I should have done that. And you're never going to be like, okay, I'm where I'm supposed to be. But if you constantly look at, like, okay, I'm grateful for this opportunity, I'm grateful for this failure, I'm grateful I met this person, whatever it may be, all of a sudden, I think that lends to a little bit more of a content version of yourself with where you are in your life, and also having that growth mindset that your best days are still ahead of you, that they're not when you were an athlete or wherever they may be.
I like the idea of taking one day at a time, because if you list off things that you want to do, you never seem to do them. More spontaneity. That's what that would be my advice.
It's fair.
Be spontaneous with what you want to do.
I think, I used to, at the very beginning or end of the year, I would look back at the year, try to think of the next year, be like, all right, where do I want to be a year from now? And it was more like less to do goals and more to be goals type thing that I think, probably start to fall into place.
What do they always say? The dreamer gets nowhere, the doer just does it, or something like that. I'm not on top of myself.
You're full of your quotes today.
Yeah. I'm real Jimmy cliche today. I want to give everybody a quick lesson. Like, for example, spontaneity. I'm going to the Bucks home opener tomorrow. You know when I decided that? Yes. Well, tomorrow. We're recording this on a Saturday. But so I went to the Bucks home opener on Sunday. But we know when I decided that? On Friday.
There you go.
There you go. Sometimes you just have to,
Very nice.
and be willing to spend $500. The service fees on these tickets are getting ridiculous.
Well, pay for experiences, right? Not for things.
I guess. Yeah.
It's another cliche.
Service still. We're price gouging us here. All right. Next week, episode 12, we're going to get into some hitting stuff next week. Talking about keeping a hitting journal. By the way, I was talking with somebody earlier in the week about this. They asked my opinion. Why? I don't know. But they asked my opinion on what my favorite drills were for hitting. And I told them I'm pretty simple. I like front toss. I like off-center front toss, working on the inner half and the outer half of the plate. But I'm also old school, and I like to go on the field. And I like to take batting practice on the field to get some training, some visualization training. What are your favorite hitting drill? I'm not big on too many drills. What are your favorite hitting drills though? What would you recommend?
So if people are is it like super cliche to say the one that's right for the athlete?
Well, today's show is cliche.
Yeah, I love field drills that let an athlete flow. And so something as simple as like, if I were to start an athlete to just like try to learn how to create power and how to flow in their swing, some type of walk-up drill, or like almost like a Bellinger drill where you start tall and take a big step into it just to feel the power of that whip in your bat. I also like constraint drills. So something where not letting you move around a lot at all. And maybe I'm restricting your legs. I'm forcing you to keep your bat in your shoulder, and I'm letting you just to teach yourself like, okay, this is how quick you can be or how short to the ball you can be. So those are kind of two opposite ends of the spectrum. And then I don't disagree with that at all. Front toss on a field, maybe at night, is probably like the coolest thing on the planet.
Yeah.
Just to be able to see where the ball goes, when the ball lands, where it goes, that spin is so important. I think that's probably the most valuable way to understand sequencing. Like, hey, when I overswing, the ball doesn't go as far as when I allow my body to whip and flow. So yeah, if we're going there, that's at night under the lights, front toss on a field. It's probably my favorite.
There you go. Simplicity. Very simple. So that's next week, episode 12, creating a hitting journal this week. Be sure to check out the Lab Epstein Hitting Podcast. Jake is back, episode 115, talking about understanding a pitcher in the box.
Very cool.
A lot of fun doing that. What do you have coming up at Softball Strength Academy?
Softball Strength Academy, we are getting busy. We are actually combining a lot of our hitting programs. We have quite a few girls doing our hitting programs with our throwing programs, and they're committing to the entire 6 months of off season. So we're writing a lot of programs for our athletes right now. So that's at Softball Strength Academy and at Velo University to check both out. And then any athlete that trains with us also gets their strength training. So that strength training can be found at athletes.warehouse on Instagram.
I want to check something before we sign off here. Give me a second. Okay, because I have a question about college football. I think I'm going to make that a thing every week now for the rest of the football season. Let's see here. Penn State last week beat Auburn, and apparently they are playing the SEC. Which SEC is is Alabama in?
The West.
Okay.
SEC West Conference.
So I don't think, okay.
Auburn's in the East with like Florida and Georgia and
right
on the side. West is LSU, Alabama, Ole Miss, I believe.
Okay. All right. Never mind. I was going to say, because Penn State looked pretty good last week, I think they would give Alabama a run for their money.
I think, you know what? I wish there was more things like the Texas-Alabama game we saw a couple weeks ago.
Oh, it's a great game.
Oh my gosh. Those are so good for the sport. So yeah, Alabama has Vanderbilt today.
Okay, so okay.
Pray for Vanderbilt, everybody.
Okay. Let me see what the line is on that game.
I don't know what it is.
Oh boy. Yeah. Looks like Alabama's gonna win that one, according to the lines. Pretty handily. All right. Well, next week, episode 12, cross functionality. Be sure to subscribe and watch the show Softball Strength Academy YouTube page, and we will talk to you next week. Bye-bye.